Well, at least four things need to go on the table right now. One is delusion. The other is illusion. The third is seeing, and the fourth is believing. And I'm just going to give a few examples of how these four things interact. Obviously, we just saw a picture of delusion. It's a very common delusion to think that you're Jesus Christ. My chaplaincy training was at St. Elizabeth's in Washington, D.C., where there were 2 solid floors of people who thought they were Jesus and 3 solid floors of people who wanted to kill the president. So, you do the math. It's a very common delusion to think that you are much more powerful than you are. And illusion is also very common. Most of us have them. We have optical illusions, like right now I can only see the faces a little bit up this way, so if you're grouchy, I can't see you. That's wonderful. And illusion is just comes from the very obvious fact that we all have one point of view, right? You can only see what you can see from where you're standing. Seeing is a much more sophisticated thing. It's what college presidents like to brag about, that they've taught their students to do somehow, their mission. And believing, of course, is the art and act of faith. And what I've realized in coming to think about these 4 verbs in terms of this wonderful play, all of which I've seen, it's delightful, is the way delusion and illusion and believing and seeing can all partner with each other at just about any given hour of the day. They can all be present. Some examples. You've heard the folk saying that you've got to see it to believe it, but you've also got to believe it to see it, right? See it to believe it, but believe it to see it. Example 1, my grandson Caleb, and you have to admit I don't do much talking about my grandson. Come on, give me a break. I can do one. Caleb is 5.5. He's just entered kindergarten. He's extremely short, but he talks like somebody really big. So whenever he says something, you get this, "Bubby, I would like to inform you that there are no cupcakes there today." And he'll say it, with the voice of the President of the United States. So I asked him how kindergarten was going on the 3rd day of kindergarten, and he said, "Oh, it's good, but I must say the dream I had about kindergarten was much better." And so I said, "What was the dream you had about kindergarten?" And he says, "I was walking across a really big bridge. It was the Verrazano Bridge. And I was walking across the Verrazano Bridge, and every step I took, the light came on for me." I said, "Was it dark before?" He said, "Yeah, it was dark, but it was like those night lights we have in the country, the solar ones that come on when the sun shines. Every step I took, a light came on for me." I am so thrilled with that dream and with that child having had that dream. And I was so tremendously thrilled by it that I neglected to tell him the truth about bridges and kindergarten and sophomore year and the first divorce. How could I do that to him? Why rob a child of an absolutely brilliant illusion? Or perhaps you've met Brandon. Brandon is highly representative of those people who come onto the subway car and say, "Excuse me," in a loud voice. Yesterday, Brandon, just south of 125th Street, came on with his loud voice, clearly inebriated, and he said, "I'm ready to go home now. And it's only $97 for a ticket to Missoula. And I don't have anybody left. But if you could help me, today is my birthday, and I am ready to go home." Not a single person on the crowded subway car even reached for their pocket. Why? You know why. He was deluded. Maybe if he'd gotten the $97, maybe he would have gotten halfway to Chicago. We couldn't give to him because his delusions were too transparent. Some of you are gardeners, certainly I am. I plant so many things in the spring that are utter failures. 2 packages of cucumber seeds, properly trellised this year, resulted in 1 lousy cucumber. Vita Sackville West, one of the best gardeners of all time, said that her failures at Sissinghurst were the equivalent of the infant mortality rate in the Middle Ages. And yet, I bet I plant again next year. I bet you do too. Am I deluded about the garden, or do I just see it? Seeing is a good thing. I see that I might get 1 lousy cucumber, but I want that 1 lousy cucumber. And all the hopes that go with the other 28 seeds per pack. I want those hopes. Margaret Atwood just said to an interviewer, I thought it was such an important thing for her to say. He was going on and she just interrupted him and said, "Do you ever feel trapped?" And he said, "Wait a minute, I'm the interviewer, why are you interviewing me?" And she said, "No, I just want to know, do you ever feel trapped?" And he said, "Yeah, sometimes I do feel trapped." And he said, "How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 44. And then she said, "Do you think that any of the reasons you're trapped have anything to do with anything you might have done or left undone?" You see sometimes that some of the ways you're stuck have something to do with you. Brandon didn't see that yet. Maybe he will. Caleb didn't see that yet. Of course, he will. We are so interested in coming out of life clean and innocent. Americans are absolutely addicted to our sense of innocence. As though the lights were just going to come on at the end of the bridge if we just put one foot in front of the other. As though the lights were there for us. The climate change conversation in the planning is so interesting, especially around the ark, which we're building right now. With Auburn Seminary, Judson has contributed. Our logo will be on the ark. And we're having Bible study nonstop about the meaning of the story of the ark. And what is that meaning? The meaning is Noah got out there and marched and saved the world, right? No. It's really not that at all. The meaning of the ark is Noah did what God told him to do, got 2 by 2 together, put them on the ark, had no idea what was going to happen next. And lo and behold, God repented of God's anger, maybe because Noah obeyed, and maybe not. God put the rainbow in the sky, renewed the covenant, said, "Okay, I'm going to give you another chance." When you are deluded, you think that you save yourself by your good actions. When you have illusions, maybe the higher illusions of Christianity, that's all it is. It's a strong guess at what God is like. In that higher illusion, you think, okay, I'm with Noah. Me and Noah are a team. We're at this. When you see, you end up trying to find another reason to do whatever you're going to do next weekend without hope for a consequence that will be as great as seeing the world. But with hope in God, who somehow will put the bow back in the sky after we messed it up again. The interesting conversation among the organizers is that the secular organizers are crazy jealous at how popular the ark has become. And one of them actually said to us just the other day, a wonderful person, she said, "Aren't you kind of turning people off by telling them God's going to take care of everything? Isn't our point to get everybody there? And of course the conversation then went, of course it is to get everybody there, as long as we don't take too much credit for what we're doing. The other great conversation around the Ark, of course, is the interfaith question. Big fights. I've never been on so many fights where I was being told that Buddhists were being excluded from an Abrahamic religious symbol. That's minor, but it could turn out to be important. And the third big conversation is about race. We are so afraid that this is going to be painted as a white person's event. White people lose. Even the ribbon conversation, Suzanne, is big on that subject. So why should people of color march in the climate change march? To make white folk look good? Make the environmental movement look good? What about the possibility that the urgent domination system is so powerful that it's pretty hard to think about the rainbow coming back in the sky when you can't even see a sky today or tomorrow? It's going to be a big fight. It's going to be really interesting, and the most important part about this march is what happens on the 22nd and 23rd and 24th and 25th, and whether we are able to do what God did, which is to repent our anger. Once you get inside Noah and the ark, you keep looking for the role that you might be able to play. And the one role you can't have is the role of Christ, the role of the deluded one, the role of the crazy one, the one who, as the play goes on, this guy over here says, yes, and by the way, I'm also the governor of Illinois. And you almost believe him, and then you look around in your own world and say, we climate marchers are totally in charge. One last example. I know that the beheading that has just come out on the news this morning is on all of our minds and all of our hearts. We did see this. The camera has an awful lot that's important to say to us. Maybe people have been beheaded before and we didn't have to see it. But to see it is to believe it. We are in an awfully precarious moment. And those of us who hope in the action of God, who want to believe that God will repent God's anger if we but can ourselves. The commentary is driving most of us crazy, I think. He started it. No, he started it. No, I started it. No, they started it. They did it first to us. They invaded Iraq, therefore we'll behead, and therefore we'll go back and forth. The revenge cycle is about to go into full all-American gear. I beg those of you who have raised sons, as I have, to remember every fight they ever had, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He started it. I didn't have anything to do with it. He started it. No, he started it. And what you really have to do is say you don't care who started it. We can't afford to care who started it. We must march also for peace and see these connections and not take ourselves too seriously as we do so. So, Caleb's bridge. I'll never be able to say the Verrazano again. I'll just have to always call it the Verrazano Bridge. Caleb's bridge does have a dreamlike truth to it. And the truth is that every step you take can make for a little more light. Amen.